Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Triple-digit heat is scorching the East Coast and endangering lives. Plus, a heat dome is now forming over the Midwest and is set to bring soaring temperatures by the weekend. In this extreme heat, could your air conditioner be spreading COVID-19? Charlotte Aaron has the answer.
The heat is on here in Virginia Beach, Virginia, where the temperatures are well beyond 100 degrees, and the heat index is expected to top 109. Many have flocked to the beach to try and stay cool and beat the heat. Still, officials urge people to use caution. The sweltering heat has tourists battling the sun and scorching sand as part of a week-long heat wave across the country.
I'm very excited to get in the water. It's been really bad. I've gotten very sunburnt, but the water's been the best relief so far.
We just want to get away, get out of the heat for a little bit, go down, enjoy the waves and the water.
Along the East Coast, high heat and humidity have made it feel well over 100 degrees in several cities. Philadelphia's heat index reached 105, while Washington, D.C. recently felt like 108 and 110 in New Jersey. In our nation's capital, officials activated a heat emergency, temporarily pausing outdoor public COVID-19 testing sites. Heat advisories are also up for parts of the Carolinas, up into the mid-Atlantic, affecting nearly 70 million people.
Well, we've seen a little break in the heat across the northeastern United States. A weak front is drifting its way down to the south. It's still warm, but the air is drier and it is more tolerable. But as we head farther south, it's the same old, same old. It's hot and it's humid, and it's dangerously hot, too. We've had heat advisories and excessive heat warnings in effect. So what's that mean? It means slow down, reduce your levels of activity, hydrate, try and stay inside in the air conditioning.
Experts warn the use of AC could help COVID-19 spread.
It's blowing the virus in a specific pattern, and you're downwind of somebody indoors, then it could blow it farther than 6 feet.
With temperatures across the country skyrocketing, infectious disease doctors encourage people to open doors and windows and run the fan mode for a few hours before and after visitors. Experts also urging people to replace existing air conditioning filters with a compatible one that removes the most particles. This as extreme heat is expected for the Southwest later this week, with temperatures also reaching triple digits. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Well, in other news, were COVID-19 infections undercounted? Well, that's what the CDC is now saying. John Jessup has more on that story.
That is right, Pat. A new report from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says COVID-19 infections in the early months could be 10 times higher than earlier predicted. This as virus-related deaths in America topped 1,000 on Tuesday, according to the COVID-19 Tracking Project. It's the first time since late May the daily deaths have passed that benchmark. In his first press conference on the topic in 3 months, President Trump warned the crisis is far from over and called on Americans to take the necessary precautions.
It will probably, unfortunately, get worse before it gets better. Something I don't like saying about things, but that's the way it is. Asking Americans to use masks, socially distance, and employ vigorous hygiene. Wash your hands every chance you get while sheltering high-risk populations. We are imploring young Americans to avoid packed bars and other crowded indoor gatherings. Be safe and be smart.
The president taking heat from Democrats over his pandemic response. Presidential rival Joe Biden said Trump has raised, quote, the white flag of surrender in the fight against the virus. Pat?
I don't think he's surrendered anything, but, you know, I was reading about the consequences of this Corona-19. It's very, very deadly. It's much worse than thought. We thought initially it would get to people's lungs and into their eyes occasionally and cause a few problems. But more than that now, they say there are heart lesions, there's brain confusion that comes about, short-term cognitive decline, and other lasting effects of this thing. It is much more serious than was realized. And one doctor who was commenting on it said the last thing that we ought to do is to test vaccines with the live virus that might get somebody infected because it is really deadly. And so we've got to be very careful. And what we're telling people to do, you don't want to get that metabolic syndrome. If you're overweight, you need to lose the weight. If you're not eating properly, you need to eat properly. You need to take the necessary rest and sort of chill out. But in addition, take the necessary vitamins and other things to build up your immune system. It is very important. John?
Pat, here in Washington, $1 trillion is on the table as the Senate and White House work to iron out details for another round of coronavirus relief. Among the items up for debate, extending unemployment benefits and a payroll tax cut. CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy has more.
Kids, jobs, and health care will be the focus of what could be the last round of COVID-19 relief packages. This as Congress faces pressure to act fast.
This crisis is far from over.
With cases on the rise, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell announced more than $100 billion for schools in the next relief bill.
This majority is preparing legislation that will send $105 billion so that educators have the resources they need to safely reopen. That is more money than the House Democrats set aside for a similar fund.
Other potential elements include another round of $1,200 payments going directly to Americans, a 5-year liability shield for COVID-19 related lawsuits, money for targeted virus testing and tracing, in the payroll tax cut.
The payroll tax in particular goes to some of our hardest working Americans. The people that it benefits, if you look at the tax structure, are middle income and low income workers.
Democrats want the additional $600 per week in unemployment benefits to continue rather than expiring at the end of July.
They're thinking about doing 70% of the amount. The amount would be the same, but doing it in a little bit smaller initial amounts so that people are going to want to go back to work.
We've said the number one issue is we have to fix the technical fix on enhanced unemployment. We're going to make sure that we don't pay people more money to stay home than go to work.
Our country faces the greatest health threat in 100 years.
In a letter to Senate Democrats, Minority Leader Charles Schumer wrote, "Unfortunately, by all accounts, the Senate Republicans are drafting legislation that comes up short in a number of vital areas, such as extending unemployment benefits or funding for rental assistance, hazard premium pay for frontline workers, or investing in communities of color being ravaged by the virus, and many other necessary provisions."
The financial markets are counting on it. I would say unemployed and employed Americans are counting on it. And I think members of Congress who mostly want to be returning to their jobs on Capitol Hill after this election are mindful that this would pretty much be a big fail if they don't pass the legislation. I think that's something that members of both parties can agree on.
Mnuchin says they are committed to getting a COVID-19 relief bill done by the end of the month. By that count, lawmakers have until next week to try and hash out a deal. Ben Kennedy, CBN News.
All right, thanks, Ben. The U.S. has ordered China to close its consulate in Houston within 72 hours. The State Department said the closing is due to, quote, massive illegal spying and influence operations. After the announcement, smoke was seen rising from a courtyard inside the consulate, employees apparently burning documents in trash barrels. A Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson condemned the U.S. action, calling it, Pat, an unprecedented escalation.
Well, there should be an escalation. There's something called Huawei that's has been tied into spying on all kinds of 5D applications. And that's being banned, and it's being banned in America, and now the UK and others are picked up the fact that this is a device by the Chinese military to spy on the internet of the people in the Western countries. And that country has, that company has got to be banned. We kicked it off, and others need to do the same thing. But there are other new accusations of Chinese hacking. John has more about that.
That is right, Pat. These accusations of Chinese hacking, it comes against American companies. The FBI now placing 2 Chinese residents on its most wanted list. A grand jury returned an 11-count indictment against the hackers, allegedly operating for more than a decade. Authorities say the men hacked hundreds of private and government systems worldwide, including a Massachusetts firm involved in COVID vaccine research and a Maryland biotech firm. The men motivated by personal financial gain and to help the Chinese Communist Party. The investigation also revealed 2 important trends.
China is using cyber intrusions as part of its rob, replicate, and replace strategy to technological development. China is providing a safe haven for criminal hackers who, as in this case, are hacking in part for their own personal gain, but willing to help the state.
The Justice Department says the charges are a warning to China that the United States will fight back against such intrusions. Well, turning now to the growing violence in America's cities. 14 people were injured in a mass shooting in Chicago Tuesday night. A passing vehicle shot at mourners at a funeral home, and several people there shot back. The victims, all adults, were taken to 5 local hospitals. Witnesses described the tragic scene.
There were shots. Shot up everywhere, all over. Legs, stomach, back. All over the place. We thought it was a war out here. It's ridiculous over here. All the shooting that's going on around here. It really needs to stop in this area.
The people in the vehicle got away. Police counted 60 shell casings on the site. The shooting comes as the Department of Homeland Security is planning to deploy federal agents to Chicago and other cities to deal with the increase in violent crime. Planned Parenthood of Greater New York is removing the name of Margaret Sanger, the American feminist icon who pushed for birth control, from its Manhattan clinic, making the move because of her support for the eugenics movement. Sanger is the founder of Planned Parenthood. Recently, more than 350 current and former staffers called her, quote, a racist white woman. Pro-life leaders argue that the organization was built on racial eugenics, the idea that humanity can be improved by selective breeding, an ideology considered harmful to the disabled, the poor, and people of color. Planned Parenthood has long disputed charges that Sanger was a racist, but now it appears it is acknowledging Sanger's record. Pat?
When I was running for political office, I made a statement about Margaret Sanger, and the head of Planned Parenthood just poo-pooed me. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, I'd read a monograph that Margaret Sanger wrote personally called Breeding the Thoroughbred. And her work on eugenics was the foundation of the Nazis. She didn't take from the Nazis took from her. And she believed in the most extraordinary things. She thought that Southern Europeans were defective mentally, that black people and Hispanic people were defective mentally, and she wanted to see, she wanted to breed out of those things, and she wanted a black leader to lead the black people into her concepts. It was terrible. And Planned Parenthood was formed by Margaret Sanger. Now they're going to denounce her after all these years. But believe me, I had all kinds of abuse from those people when I told the truth about her. But now it's coming out of what the kind of person she was, and she was terrible. John?
Well, Pat, as schools across the country work to find ways to reopen in the fall, hundreds of Christian summer camps have already faced that difficulty. As Heather Sells reports, these ministries are finding unique solutions to continue their mission to lead a new generation to Christ.
This is what the leaders of Wisconsin's Honey Rock Camp were hoping to see this summer. Lots of kids together, worshiping, trying new activities, and enjoying the beautiful outdoors. Then COVID-19 changed everything.
Initially, we decided to cut the first half of our summer and delay the arrival of staff.
Camp director Rob Ribby says they surveyed parents and found they wanted camp to open. So Honey Rock put together a plan and is opening for 4 weeks.
Our heart is to try and make sure that the Honey Rock experience in kind of its essence is still there, but we've had to make face coverings part of the program. We've created cleaning kind of stations at every activity area. So after you go canoeing and use a canoe paddle, and a life jacket, you have to clean it off.
Honey Rock has also asked campers and their families to isolate for 14 days before camp. The risks are clear. Safety precautions failed at one large Missouri camp, leading to 82 cases, according to state health leaders. But some camps have decided to cancel programming. Camp Hope Haven in Virginia Beach made that difficult decision this summer, and that has meant no camp for more than 700 kids.
Week by week, we were all watching the notices and how the virus was spreading. It just led to the same result. We can't do this effectively. And if we do it and we do it poorly, that's what will be remembered, not the fact that we tried to accommodate this unique situation.
The Christian Camp and Conference Association has 872 members. Less than half have canceled summer sessions. Instead, they're working with local health officials to create new policies for keeping kids safe.
We're praying for God's mercy and blessing and wisdom as camps operate, that they'll do the right things to mitigate or minimize the risks that are there.
Some camps have moved to virtual activities that kids and parents can enjoy at home. The Christian Camp Association president, Greg Hunter, says the good news is that Christian camping was strong before COVID. In 2019, camps saw high attendance and healthy budgets. He predicts parents and kids will be eager to return when camps are fully back in operation.
I expect a spike. When COVID is gone, I expect a spike in attendance for camp all across the country and probably around the world.
For now, many are hoping for a summer of transformation, spurred by desperate times, combined with kids, parents, and staffers willing to face a multitude of precautions because they appreciate the value of camp. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Another example of part of life in the new normal. Pat?
Yeah, will we ever get back to the normal? We hope so. But anyhow,